Welcome to Discovering Orthodox Christianity. I'm Stacy Spanos, your host for this series of programs designed to explain the basic teachings of Orthodox Christianity. We're honored to be filming at the Holy Cross Chapel on the campus of Hellenic College, Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology in Boston. In today's program, we'll discuss orthodoxy in a new media age. Our special guests today are His Eminence, Metropolitan Savas of Pittsburgh, one of the first clergymen to embrace social media and who currently has 7,000 friends and followers on Facebook. Also, Theo Nicolakis. He is the director of the Department of Information Technologies for the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. He is the founder and developer of the award-winning internet presence that our archdiocese has today, and he is also an archon of the Ecumenical Patriarchate. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Your Eminence. 7,000 followers on Facebook. I got a glimpse of how you managed to keep them all going. You are on Facebook a lot. What do you find enjoyable about it?
The back and forth, actually. The fact that I have a lively group of followers who respond to just about anything I put out there. And it keeps me kind of plugged in as well, because I end each day by posting the epistle and gospel for the next day, often changing my profile pic to reflect the saint or the feast of the next day. So I'm plugged in a very real way to the liturgical calendar, and it's a kind of an ascesis, a prayerful exercise for me to do this before the end of the day. But I'm also always looking for places where religion and culture intersect or sometimes clash. And I just want to bring those things to the attention of my friends for their awareness and for their to get their perspective on it. Because some of these stories are underreported in the media. You have to search them out, and I make an effort to search them out and pick the ones that I think will be most edifying for my friends. And I also get to share my own personal preferences as well. I like to tell people what I happen to be reading at the time, what movies I've happened to see, what I'm listening to, because I think that's all important as well.
You're very plugged in to current culture.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to share that. Theo, there are so many platforms when it comes to social media. Did the church make a concerted effort to get on many of them, or did it just happen naturally?
It's been a combination of both. I think that we try to strategically look at where things are trending, and we try to use the appropriate platform. So, whether we're talking Facebook or Twitter or Pinterest or YouTube, it's trying to see where we're able to utilize a presence. And I think that the key here is each platform offers a unique angle. And the one thing that we try to be cognizant of is, are we using the medium effectively with what the medium offers? So, if we're using something on Pinterest, are we able to use that photographic and visual element appropriately? If it's something on Facebook, are we able to do something that's going to be engaging? If we're doing something on the web, can we do something that's going to be both a reference, but also allow people something that's going to be shareable and allow them to engage in a topic?
What social media platforms is the church on?
Right now, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Pinterest, we're on YouTube, and we're on Twitter. And we're exploring a few others right now that we just haven't made the foray yet, but they're coming.
That's pretty modern to be on to be on Pinterest. Of course, it seems like everybody is on Facebook these days. The church is so beautiful, it's so spiritual, and it's almost like an antique, the beauty of it. So to think of icons and whatnot being on Pinterest, it's kind of strange for a lot of people, I'm sure. What do you say to people when they say, we're on Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, what?
Well, I think that beauty is prevalent in any medium that we have. And I think that part of the responsibility and the role of the church is to take the different mediums that are introduced and to try to sanctify that space, to bring the message of the gospel. Oftentimes it's called the new evangelism that you'll hear thrown around. And I firmly believe that as an Orthodox church, as Orthodox Christians, part of what our calling and responsibility is to witness the message of Christ. Number one is what we do as a church, but also to try to establish the framework of what does it mean to be an Orthodox Christian as I'm participating and interacting in these different mediums. And I think the two go hand in hand.
Your Eminence, how have you felt that this has helped shape the faith of the spiritual, or perhaps people who are non-believers?
Well, I won't address the question of non-believers right off, but I think that it's made it easier for people who are casually Orthodox to have a kind of a daily reminder. If they like something or if they friend you, you may be the only religious thing that they like or friend, but you're there in the mix. And from time to time, they'll visit. And from time to time, something you post will get under their skin. And so why not take advantage of that opportunity, you know? I mean, for so many people, religion is at most a Sunday-to-Sunday experience. So why not be a day-to-day experience, maybe even an hour-by-hour experience, just to create that kind of connection with the Word, you know? I see no downsides, actually.
One of our guests said that a lot of people, when they go to Greece or when they go to their home country and they see the signs of Orthodoxy everywhere because it is the predominant religion, that is a daily reminder. We could use this just the same way. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, our physical presence here is a lot less pronounced than it is in a traditionally Orthodox country. If you're in Greece or in Serbia or in Russia, you're going to pass by things in your daily travels, and you'll do your crosses, you go by a church, you'll see a roadside shrine, there'll be something that brings that to mind. And, you know, we can be that, you know, on the internet.
So let me ask you, Theo, about Twitter, because it's 140 characters or less. Do you have a difficult time paring down the messages? Because, Your Eminence, I know you like to post more lengthy things on your Facebook page.
Sometimes.
You're not a Twitter fan.
I haven't figured it out yet. You know.
Not your thing yet.
No.
How do we parse down these beautiful scripture, deep thoughts into 140 characters or less?
Well, you can. And I think that we need to look at how we're doing these microblogging services, something like a Twitter, that the Beatitudes can all be tweeted. We're under 140 characters with that. And oftentimes what people use for Twitter or some of these services is a little reference point teaser to now bring you in. So it sort of becomes the hook, is here it is a little bit, have a taste, now come experience the fullness elsewhere.
What is the downside of all this new technology and social media?
Well, since you asked.
Since you asked, yes.
I think, and we were talking about this earlier this morning, my vantage point, personally, is we're at a point now where things are developing so quickly. It's oftentimes challenging to really socialize to how do we use all this, these new formats, these new mediums, these new services. And I think you start to get a much larger generation gap between parents and kids. So we'll give a kid a device, and that device might be not just an iPhone or an Android phone, a smartphone, it might be a gaming device that's fully internet enabled, and parents don't know it. So any device you're buying, gaming, set-top box, televisions nowadays, there's a trend towards interconnectedness and the ability to share. And the danger becomes when a child is given a device, that child is now given a very, very powerful tool that they may not have the capacity, the framework, the educational background, so to speak, to really delve into using it appropriately. And the parents sometimes feel overwhelmed. They take a step back, and it's the worst thing that parents can do. And I think that as we bring technology into our homes, give it into our kids over time, we need both as a church and as a family unit become more involved in how our children are utilizing those devices and be aware what the potential pitfalls may be.
You know, I think this is the first time in human history where children have the upper hand when it comes to knowledge. There was a time when that book would go on the upper shelf, out of their reach, or it would be in a special collection under lock and key at the library, and you had to be of a certain age to access it. Now, the kid can get to it much faster and with much greater ease than the parent. And so this is a new world, and I think I said a few minutes ago, there's no downside. Well, yeah, there is a dark side. There are dark possibilities. I'm saying there's no downside to us being present there, but the thing itself is capable of introducing people to lots of danger.
Well, you've gotten some negative comments on your Facebook page. How do you deal with that, or how would you counsel other people to deal with that?
Well, I try to remind people when they ask me to be their friend, I let them know that there are house rules and that I don't mind difference of opinion, but I do mind nastiness. I try to describe what I'm doing as hosting a buffet, and that people are welcome to sample of everything that I put out there, and some of it may be to their taste and some may not. Some may be, traditional American, some may be exotic Middle Eastern, whatever it may be. Some may be cold or spicy or hot or just fishy. But whatever it may be, if you don't like it, leave it and go somewhere else. And you're free to engage with other people, but don't spit the food at them. Don't insult the host. Don't track your mud in. Come properly dressed. Those kinds of things. And otherwise, I'll show you the door. But I have to say that in the 6 years I've been online, I've only banished from my premises about 20 people. And they've largely been single-issue people who've wanted me to conform to their agenda and felt that I haven't been consistently dealing with their pet issue, and have crossed the line and become very insulting, not just to me, but to my other friends. And when I say friends, 7,000 people, I probably know a couple hundred of them. I don't really know 7,000 people. But it creates a weird phenomenon in that I can go to any parish now, and 2 or 3 people will know me, and they'll come
through
up
Facebook,
through Facebook, and they say, we're friends. And I say, yeah, Evgenia, right, yeah.
Does that feel strange to you? Does it feel like you've got an instant connection with them?
Oh, it feels good. It feels good, that I know something about this person. I know, oh yeah, I was praying for your daughter. She was sick a couple of weeks ago. How are things going with her? And
let me ask you, do people ask you a lot for prayers? What do they ask you for?
Well, they write to me privately for that.
For that, okay.
Yeah. And when anybody can write to me privately, friends have the right to comment on your post, but anybody can interact with you in your mailbox, So I get a lot of people that I don't know asking me to remember people in prayer. So it makes it kind of challenging for me, in preparing for the liturgy. I come to the proskomidi, to the preparation, bringing lists of Facebook requests,
Theo, what do you make of that? That's pretty fascinating, isn't it, that we've come to this point in the church's evolution?
I think it's beautiful from this perspective is we're trying to, I don't know if the word is interpret, but try to bring our Orthodox experience of prayer life, of our liturgical cycle, and bring that to the online world. Just like as Eminence said, one of the first things that we did on the Archdiocese website is we wanted to bring the liturgical life to the goarch.org site. So the site will actually change with its color, the iconography, the whole tenor of the site, depending on the liturgical year. So, we'll have the icon of the resurrection up in the banner during the Paschal period, what have you. It'll actually turn purple, the banner during the Lenten period. But this natural tendency towards real Christian community is something that we are trying to bring, I think, via these mechanisms like a Facebook and what have you. And the ability to offer prayer, the ability to offer that Christian sense of love and communion is something that the social media really allows us to do in a way we haven't been able to do before.
You've been with the program for 19 years at the Archdiocese, trying to get the technology department up and running and doing it successfully, obviously. His Eminence has embraced this wholeheartedly, but I might imagine there are probably many who have not. What do you tell them in trying to sway their opinion, in trying to get on social media?
Well, it's funny, having the perspective of almost 20 years, I find the same questions arise with the introduction of every new medium. First it was email, then it was the web.
How far we've come, right?
And it's the same thing as, gee, we shouldn't be there because they'll read something negative in the news, and that's their only experience of the medium or the service, is something that was written in a news article. And what I try to say back is, it's our responsibility, if there is someone who's there, we need to go and witness there with them. With moderation in what we're doing, but I think it's our evangelical responsibility to proclaim the gospel, to be there for somebody. Because if we're not, are we really doing what we're called to do?
You know, I just want to pull back even further and just deal with the notion of technology and just remind people that the alphabet is a technology, writing is a technology, roads are a technology, you know, and there was a downside to every one of those new developments. You know, Socrates, or Plato has Socrates say in one of his dialogues, he laments the development of writing because it weakens the memory. And people can download stuff onto paper, and paper will do the remembering. And we're becoming less human, you know? So there were people who were always aware of the cost. You know, a road will get you someplace quicker, but it also provide easier access for your enemies too, you know? They can get at you quicker, you know? The telegraph created a lot of confusion when it first, because until the telegraph, news only traveled as fast as you could travel on land. And what was that, 30 miles a day, you know? And then the train, of course, accelerated that process. But with the telegraph, you were getting bombarded from all over the world with stuff that you now had to think about and process. And you had to wonder, does it matter that there's a rebellion in Beijing? How does that impact me right now? That some guy has just broken the record for flagpole sitting, you know, that it's 70 degrees in London, you know. I mean, all these things are like, you're overwhelmed by factoids, you know, and you have to process that. So the technology changes you too. It makes you a different person, you know, with the development of the telephone, which we now all take for granted, and we couldn't think of living without one. But American pastors in particular were very leery of the telephone. They would preach sermons against it because it invaded the privacy of the home. You didn't know who was at the other end. And they were interrupting meals. And it was providing for unchaperoned conversations between members of the opposite sex.
Wow. That's an interesting way to look at it. Now,
you know?
that just seems so old-fashioned.
Right.
Let me ask you, when other priests talk to you, or bishops, or whomever in the church says, you know, why are you doing this? How do I do it? Do you give them counsel? Do you have to teach them? Is there a class? Because, you know, people of my parents' generation certainly don't know how to navigate this.
I don't know that they all have to, you know. I think it is time-consuming. I think of it as a kind of a special ministry that I feel particularly called to. But, you know, I recognize that it does take a lot of time, that I have my episcopal responsibilities, my face-to-face stuff, my meetings, my visitations, but there really isn't any more downtime in my life, because I will go online to see what's happening, you know, to the Christians in Egypt or in Turkey or in Syria, or to this legislation or whatever that I think is of interest to my people, and I want to keep them up to date, and I want to hear what they have to say about it too. So it is it's a big commitment, and I'm not recommending that everybody do it, but I do think that there are right ways and wrong ways of doing it. You know, I think that we have to figure it out as we go along, you know.
And that's a very good issue. Are there classes, are there rules set out for people like His Eminence on what to post, what not to post?
The good thing, and I think it's really a credit to the Archdiocese, is the Youth and Young Adult Ministries Department actually published an entire set of guidelines, much of which includes social media and how that should happen. I know I've been invited to a few metropolises to talk to clergy about issues related to social media, how you should do it. And I think that the one thing that transcends clergy and anyone is we should never use social media or online as a way to become a different person. We should always try to maintain who we are as Orthodox Christians, whether we're clergy, whether we're lay people, and we should never have a dualistic personality between the online world and our offline world, so to speak. We should be consistent and always witness the gospel.
That's actually a very good rule of thumb for everybody to use. Don't try to be anybody that you're not online, because that's an easy trap to fall into. Have you found that there are any hazards along the way when you're navigating social media?
Well, there's always kind of, there's always the risk of scandalizing people, because I do try to be myself online, and that was a challenge too at the beginning. How much of myself was I going to be in this process? Was I just here to be kind of a source of Orthodox information, a kind of an Orthodox answer man, or was I going to engage as the person that I am? And, a person who has brothers and sisters and who has particular likes and dislikes, and
So how'd you decide? How did you navigate that?
I just started letting slipping things in, and then I became more and more comfortable with it, because I know, look, when I was in the seminary, I was in a band, the Woolly Bullies, and I knew that a lot of people knew that. All my seminarian friends knew that. The tapes are still in circulation, and I wondered, is that something that I should worry about? That I'm going to be exposed as a former rocker? No, just embrace it. Just include it. But people can be bothered. People will say, this isn't what I expect. I expect a different standard of my bishop. And I do have to have private discussions with a lot of people to try to, bring them around, if possible, to my point of view on this.
It's often said that we live in a microwave world. But the church obviously moves at a slower pace and can we keep up with the fast pace of technology, Theo?
I think we can, and I think we've done a decent job of doing that. I think what we try to find is when we try to control the technology, that's when it blows up in our face.
What do you mean by control the technology?
I think that what happens is that the world has changed completely. So if you try to say there's a news item, and now we're going to look at it, and we're going to try to get something together. Well, you know what the news release is today? It's Twitter. So-and-so's resigned. This is what has happened. Boom. It's about getting the information out there just for the sake of getting it out there to inform people. And I think that if we try to again, try to control or shape it, that's where you're going to lose. And you've seen it with the uprisings that have happened in the Middle East, the so-called, Arab Spring and other things, is information flies too fast from too many vantage points, that we have to have a voice, we have to get it out there, not thinking that if something happens, we can just sort of turn aside and it's going to go away. It's actually going to magnify if we don't say something about it. So yes, I do think we can keep pace by having that perspective.
Do you feel that people are drawn to the Orthodox faith and maybe engage more, or maybe their experience is enhanced through the use of social media?
I do.
I certainly do,
yeah.
Yes. Because, as you know, it's not just text that goes back and forth. People will post a liturgical celebration of some kind, or a family celebration, or a gallery of icons, or the hymn of the day. And for a lot of people, this is access to a world that they've never experienced before. And it gets under people's skin, it hooks them, and they enter into conversation. And I hear time and again people write to me privately, again, pray for me, I'm going to be received into the church this week. And I came into the knowledge of the church, through Orthodox discussion groups or something I saw online. When I was studying here, there was probably, 35, 40, 50 books in English about Orthodoxy. We bought them all. The Hellenic College Press books and the Holy Cross Press books and St. Vladimir's, and we had them all. Now, everything. I mean, the explosion in English language resources, and it's all at your fingertips. It's just amazing. And why shouldn't good things come from that? you know? You don't have to send away for a book that, or make a trek to a library to have a question answered about this thing. You can actually get online and I mean, you can go to Mount Athos, you can experience a liturgy there. I think I was surprised that Mount Athos was one of the earliest Orthodox presences that I found online.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the last one I think would be online.
Oh, and it was, what was very interesting about it is that doors would open and you would come in, and this is 5 or 6 years ago, and you would light a candle. Oh. You'd take a candle from here and you'd light it and leave it in the sandbox before coming into the church. You can light as many as you wanted. Of course, you had pre-registered and it was costing you $1 for each. No, that's not true.
If I could add something to what he's saying, what Eminence is saying is, I've always viewed our adoption of technology through the lens of St. Basil. He wrote a treatise, which is the worst titled, that's called The Address to Young Men on How They Should use Greek Literature. And it really raises a fundamental question, is now that Christianity was legalized in the Roman Empire, how do you view all of these pagan texts, the philosophers? And what St. Basil uses as an image is he uses the image of the honeybee. And he says, just as the honeybee is discerning on which flower it lands on to pull the nectar, that's the way we have to be with life, whether it comes to music, art, technology, to be discerning, because there is truth, there is value in life, and even in technology, but it's how we use it, how we choose what to take. And I think that if we can use our life, the posts, to interpret it through a Christian lens, so people aren't viewing life as a Sunday exercise, that we can have a truly a Christian existence. I think that's what we're trying to get at, and that's where we can add value to it.
But there is, as I said, that every technology is going to change you in some way. This technology is changing us. We're aware of ourselves in different ways.
Sure.
We're aware of ourselves as kind of performers in our own reality show. We're aware of ourselves as being observed from multiple angles. This is not, it's just, these are adjustments we're living through right now, and it's hard to know exactly if this is a good or bad thing. We'll look back on it and figure it out. But
you're right, it is a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, there really is no option. Yeah. The river is flowing.
You're absolutely right. Well, let me ask you, how would St. Paul and the apostles use social media? Would they use social media?
Well, they used the latest technology. St. Paul was present in his writings. St. Paul didn't just rely on face-to-face. He sent letters that he expected to be copied and transmitted to other communities. And his voice is still heard today because he put his voice on paper. He certainly used the road system to travel.
Which was the new technology at the time, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Theo, do you believe the same thing?
I do. And that analogy really strikes volumes with me. Is you had the charismatic element, the spoken word. You had the liturgical element. You had the Roman roadway system. All of those played an incredible role of technologies. We don't think of them as technologies, but they were innovations that allowed the preaching and the charismatic element of the gospel.
Well, let me ask you then, with so many roads on social media, so many hazards as well, what do you tell Orthodox parents about navigating it with their children, or even for the parents themselves, Theo?
Well, we've done a couple of things. Since the 1980s, the Archdiocese has been actively involved, actually a founder of the Religious Alliance Against Pornography. And that's an interfaith coalition made up of Christians, Muslims, and Jews, representing about 100 million people of faith here in the United States, talking about these issues that have obviously changed over time, and now speaking about it through the perspective of technology. There have been a couple of summits that have been held in the Washington, D.C. area. We've held meetings with different agencies, the CTIA being some of them. We've had meetings with Facebook most recently to try to engage them on some of these issues. And now we've just done a major partnership with the Roman Catholic Church, specifically the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and we've launched an initiative called Faith and Safety, so that we're putting out there for parents, busy parents, bite-sized information that they can start to digest about different apps that are available on the phones. What are some of the pitfalls? Well, what's the right age at which I should give my kid a cell phone or an iPad or an account on some of these things? And just try to educate them as much as possible. I think that's where our role is number one, we care about families. That's an important message. Number two is our faith has a role and an important voice in the process. And number three is to try to encourage parents to be active parents, because that loving environment speaks volumes. The technology is always, always going to change. You can't teach to a device. I can't teach to the iPhone, I can't teach to the iPad, but what I can say is, why am I engaging in this activity? Is it spiritually beneficial to me? Number two, will my actions directly or indirectly hurt, harm, or impact somebody? And number three is, if I'm still conflicted, well, what would Christ do in a situation like that? If we can convey that message, Christian citizens in the digital world, then I think we've done something.
I think it's fascinating that, and probably exhausting at a certain level on the administrative level, that the church has become such an umbrella. Not only is it tending to the spiritual needs of people, but now it's also tending to some of the social issues. Do you find that it gets daunting at times, Your Eminence?
I really don't make such a sharp line between the spiritual and the material or social. I mean, that's how the spiritual is communicated. I don't think of the spiritual as the disembodied. I don't think of it as just inner versus outer. I think the whole of reality is the church is about everything, and yeah, it's daunting, but so what?
You're excited about the future.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And what does the future hold for social media platforms and the church, Theo? As the man in charge of it for the Archdiocese, tell us.
I think what we're already seeing is the challenge of content. What you're seeing right now at a seminal level is the desire and a drive to share, and that shareability. Well, right now I can share on my Facebook page, through my computer, I can share on my phone. Well, it should be any device, any medium, any time in the format that I choose. So the living room is going to be the next frontier, and I think that that's going to be where it is. And then it's going to be, you're going to start to see the tech industry more and more trying to figure out is how can I become, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but how can I be plugged in all the time, or have the capability to be plugged in all the time? Because right now, just as His Eminence was saying earlier, and if you think about it, the paradigm is almost identical. If I wanted to know something, I went to an encyclopedia, so I'd have to go someplace. Now that information is accessible to me either on my device, my phone, my mobile device, what have you, and now I'm using services to get that, whether it's Wikipedia, whether it's a search engine like Google, and it's become a more organic way of how we interact with individuals. I don't know something, pull it out, look it up, okay, well, here's the information.
Well, we thank you both for your time. And as we said earlier, you'll have to kick some Facebook friends off in order to let others on after seeing this.
There's kind of a natural attrition rate. People sort of get their fill and then drop out. And so I have this waiting list of people, and I just pull them in as people. Every day there's a movement of 2 or 3.
Well, Your Eminence, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
Theo, Nicolakis, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And to view more programs in this series entitled Discovering Orthodox Christianity, I invite you to log onto our YouTube channel. It's www.youtube.com/Greek Orthodox Church. I'm Stacey Spanos. Thanks for joining us.